Yes. See now, in the last class we discussed about residential status. So residential status means what? Tax liability is determined on the basis of his residence in India in the previous year. So that is known as residential status. So that is known as residential status. In residential status, there are two types. There are main two types. One is resident and one is non-resident. That also we have discussed in the previous class. So under resident, again there are two types categories of residents are there. One is ordinarily resident and one more is not ordinarily resident. So ordinary resident can be termed as OR and not ordinary resident can be termed as NOR. So now we need to see residential status for individual SSC. Very important question for 8 mark theory question comes. If you see the past question paper, you will come to know there is a theory question residential status of an individual SSC. So see this section 6 clause 1 lays down that individual SSC has to fulfill any one of the two condition. Any one of the two condition. If he fulfills any one of the two condition, he becomes a resident of India in the previous year. He becomes resident of India in the previous year. So what are those conditions? So we have discussed in the last class. First condition, he has been there in India in that year for a period or periods amounting in all to 182 days or more. That means what? In the previous year, he must have stayed for at least half of the year. Half of the year means more than 182 days or at least 182 days or more than 182 days. That is the first condition. Or see or so because any one of the two conditions, that is why or is given. So now second condition, he has been there in India for a period or period aggregating for 365 days or more during the 4 years preceding the previous year and is in India for a period or periods amounting in all to 60 days or more in the previous year. So what is the second basic condition? In the previous year, you should stay for 60 days and year preceding the previous year. That means 4 years preceding the previous year. Suppose our previous year is 2018-19. 4 year preceding the previous year means 17-18, 16-17, 15-16 and 14-15. So 4 years he should have stayed for 365 days in aggregate. What do you mean by 365 days in aggregate? So that is nothing but total number of days. So total he should have stayed for 365 days in last 4 years preceding the previous year. That means 1 year he may stay for 100 days. Second year he may stay for 50 days. Third year maybe 150 days. Fourth year maybe 25 days. Total should be more than 365. Total should be more than 365. So that is the second basic condition. So if any one of the basic condition is satisfied, individual becomes a resident in India. So that is given under section 6 clause 1. So this section is also very important. Section 6 clause 1. Then we know that stay in India need not to be continuous. That's what I am telling. So he may stay for 100 days. Again he can leave the country and he may live in a foreign country. Again he come back to again he can come back to India in the same year. So that and all can be done. So now exception. What is the exception in the case of individual? So what are those two exception we have discussed for residential status in the last class? Can you tell me what are the two exceptions we have discussed?
Employment,
Yes, one is employment. Yes. Then
there is foreign
foreign
national.
national. Yes. One more is foreign national of Indian origin. Yes. So now you see exception. Exception in the case of individual. First one, being the citizen of India who leaves India for the purpose of employment abroad. That means suppose for any job opportunity he leaves India and not for studies. Very important. Not for studies or who leaves India as a member of a crew of Indian ship. One is for employment or as a member of a crew of Indian ship. Then he must have stayed for 182 days instead of 60 days under condition B. That means what? That means he must fulfill first condition only. He must fulfill first condition only in the case of employment abroad or crew of Indian ship. That means for him there is no option. For him there is no option. That means here if you see this one out of two condition, but for employment abroad and crew of Indian ship no option. He has to fulfill first condition itself. That means second condition is not available. Second condition is not available in the case of employment abroad and crew of member of Indian ship. That is first exception. Second exception, if you see, what is the second exception? Being the citizen of India or foreign national of Indian origin. He is outside India or visits India in the previous year. He must have stayed for 182 days instead of 60 days under condition B. That means what? Again, same thing. First condition applies. Second condition is not there for them. Foreign national of Indian origin. Only first condition he should satisfy. If he fails to satisfy the first condition, if he fails to satisfy the first condition, in that case what happens? In that case he becomes a non-resident. In that case he becomes non-resident of India in the previous year. In the previous year. So that is about exception for individual SSE. Exception for individual SSE. So that we have discussed now. One is for employment abroad, crew of Indian ship, foreign national of Indian origin. Then we have discussed in the last class, see this, foreign national of Indian origin means that is either of his parent or any of his grandparents was born in undivided India. Again, his visit to India may be for business purpose or to meet relative or for pleasure trip. So can you tell me, in the last class we have discussed, what do you mean by undivided India now? Undivided India means, yes, anyone?
Before
Undivided.
independence.
Yes, before independence, correct. Before independence, so many of our neighboring country were together, isn't it? India, Pakistan, and all. Suppose any of the parents or any of the grandparents were born before independence, that is in India before independence, that is before 1947, and now their son or their children are living outside, that is their children are living outside India. In that case what happens? In that case again, first condition he should satisfy. First condition he should satisfy. Second condition is not available. No, second condition is not available. Next, non-resident. Now we have discussed the exception. Two exceptions we have discussed. Next thing is non-resident. Who is a non-resident? If an individual fails to satisfy any one of the two basic conditions, in that case he becomes non-resident. That means if individual fails to satisfy both the basic condition or any one of the basic condition, in that case he becomes non-resident. Non-resident, in short, what you can say? In short, what you can say for non-resident? Yes, Anuj, in short, what you can say for non-resident? Yes, Anvit, what you can say?
NRI, sir.
Yes, NRI. So non-resident means, yeah, person who was not there in India in the previous year. Person who was not there in India in the previous year means what? He has stayed in India for less than 182 days in the previous year. So he has not stayed more than 182 days in the previous year. Such a person is termed as non-resident under Tax Act of 1961. Yes, now resident and ordinarily resident. Then we discussed resident and ordinarily resident, section 6 clause 6. So what is section 6 clause 6? Section 6 clause 6 is also termed as additional condition. First section 6 clause 1 basic condition. Now section 6 clause 6 is additional condition. So you see, if an individual satisfies any one of the basic conditions specified under section 6 clause 1, we know that person is a resident. Then, if he satisfies both the additional condition as well, then he becomes resident and ordinarily resident. Then he becomes resident and ordinarily resident. So now you need to see the additional condition. Two additional condition. First one you see, he has been there in India in at least 2 out of 10 previous year, immediately preceding the relevant previous year. That means what? He must have stayed in India for at least 2 out of last 10 previous year. That is, he must have stayed for more than 182 days in at least 2 out of last 10 previous year preceding the previous year. That is the meaning of that sentence. Residence means more than 182 days, isn't it? So that is the first additional condition. Then second, and now you see here there is and. Why there is it is and? Because you need to satisfy both the condition. In the first case there was or means any one of the condition. So now second basic condition, additional condition, if you see, See this additional condition. He has been there in India for a period of at least 730 days during the 7 year immediately preceding the relevant previous year. So what happens here? What happens here? 730 days means what we have discussed. 730 days means again it is equivalent to 2 year, isn't it? 365 into 2, if you do, that is 730 days. So again, if he stays for 730 days in the last 7 year preceding the previous year, and he has been a resident out of 2 out of 10 previous year preceding the previous year, in that case what happens? He becomes a resident and ordinarily resident. So now you are clear with the basic condition and additional condition. So any doubt in the basic condition and additional condition? In the last class also we have discussed basic and additional condition. Any doubt regarding this? Now you can ask any doubt. Anuj, Anvit, Pragati, Suraksha. Any doubt regarding basic condition and additional condition under section 6 clause 1 and section 6 clause 6?
No, sir.
No doubt, Anvit.
Oh, no, sir.
Pragati is saying no doubt.
No,
Then
sir.
yeah, Anuj, whether you have doubt regarding this? So Anuj is
Anuj is having network
yeah,
issues,
it's
sir.
okay. Fine.
Network issue.
Fine.
He's not able to hear properly.
Yeah. So now we discussed additional condition, basic condition. Next thing we need to see when and all individual becomes resident and not ordinarily resident. See this. In addition to fulfilling any one of the basic conditions specified under section 6 clause 1, if the individual fails to satisfy both the condition given in section 6 clause 6, that means these two conditions. Section 6 clause 6, these two conditions, if he fails to satisfy, then he becomes what? Then he becomes resident and not ordinarily resident. NOR. In other word, what you can say? NOR is the one who satisfies any one of the basic condition under section 6 clause 1. Any one of the basic condition means what? What is the basic condition? This thing. These things. He satisfies any one of the two condition. Then you see the meaning again. But has been a non-resident in India for 9 out of 10 years preceding the previous year, or stayed in India for a period not exceeding 729 days during the 7 year preceding the previous year. That means what? That means he fails to satisfy both the additional condition, or he fails to satisfy any one of the additional condition. In that case, what happens? He becomes resident and not ordinarily resident. Resident and not ordinarily resident. So, any doubt in resident and not ordinarily resident? Now, can you tell me? Yes, Pragati, can you tell me who will become resident and not ordinarily resident? Yes, Pragati. Yes, Anvit. Who will become resident and not ordinarily resident? That means when one person or when individual can become resident and not ordinarily resident. Can you tell me? Can you tell me the rules?
Resident should stay more than 182 days.
Yes. Then
Uh,
yes, if he stays for more than 182 days, then he is a resident. Now I want resident
Yes, sir.
and not ordinarily resident.
Not ordinary. Is it like the parent is was born before independence? That case.
No. That is the exception for second basic condition. That is different. Exceptions are that is different. Now I will tell you. Resident and not ordinary resident means he satisfies any one of the two conditions. Then he becomes resident. Correct? Isn't it? He becomes
Yeah.
resident. Yes.
Yeah.
After that, he fails to satisfy any one of the additional condition or both the additional condition. In that case, that individual is termed as resident and not ordinarily resident. Whether this is clear?
Okay.
Yes, Anvit?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So that you will come to know while solving the problem. 4 mark this or residential status number of days we need to calculate while it will be more clear. Now this is theory part. So you need to understand the theory part first. So now we discussed residential status of an individual assessee that we have already discussed in the last class. Again I have discussed with you residential status of an individual assessee. Now next thing is HUF. Next thing comes is HUF section 6 clause 2. So HUF you know Hindu undivided family. So who is the head of the Hindu undivided family? Can you tell me? Who is the head of the Hindu undivided family? What is he termed as? We have discussed this. What is he termed as? Head of the HUF is termed as what?
Karta.
Yes, Karta. Karta is the head of the family. So now you see.
Karta.
Yes, correct. So now you see, when and all HUF can become resident. HUF is said to be a resident in India in every previous year except where control and management is situated wholly outside India. Even if the control and management is situated in India during the previous year, HUF becomes resident in India. That means what? That means what? If and only if the control and management situated wholly outside India, then only HUF becomes non-resident in all other cases. In all other cases means now I will tell you one example. Suppose part of the management is there in India and part of the management is there in some other country. In that case, whether HUF is a resident, can you tell me? In that case, whether HUF is a resident?
Yes.
Yes, resident. Only when entire control is outside India, in that case itself, the HUF is non-resident. In all other cases, partly or fully in India, in all other cases, HUF is a resident. HUF is a resident, that is Hindu undivided family. So now you know when HUF can become a resident in India. Next thing, when HUF can become ordinarily resident. HUF to become an ordinarily resident in the previous year, Karta of the family. Karta of the family means head of the family should satisfy both the additional conditions specified under section 6 clause 6. So both the additional conditions specified under section 6 clause 6 means for individual they have given additional condition. Now my question is whether the additional condition for individual and HUF is one and the same. Whether the additional condition given for individual and HUF is one and the same. Can you tell me? Can you tell me now?